short stories in general, and some of you, I think, are writing novels too. I thought I would bring two of them with me. One, the way I worked it was that two of the essays dealt with nuts and bolts of writing, and two of them dealt with theory, and why we're doing this shit in the first place. So I thought I'd start by hopefully reading you some selections of these. I'm not going to read all of them, unless you want me to. If you like them enough, I'll continue. But this is the first one. It's called Bolts. As you can tell, it's bolts. My friend Tom Monglione runs a Borderlands writer's workshop, and he's good. He developed this thing called the bookstore browser. You walk into a bookstore, assuming there are any left in the neighborhood, and you're not the type to pick up the latest James Patterson or buy on the basis of flat copy, then maybe what you do is actually open the book, read the first line, the first paragraph, see if they grab it. I'll go Tom one better. If you want to sell to a publisher or get an agent's attention, you better do the same. Be good right off the bat. That, friends, is the name of the game in terms of selling. These folks have no time to spare, and sometimes the attention span of a gnat. It's also the name of the game in terms of good writing. Editors and publishers be damned. We're supposed to lure our readers in right away to our people and our world. The classic bad opening sentence, of course, is Bulwer Lytton's "It was a dark and stormy night," etc. So bad that there are yearly awards in his honor. Here's a winner. In these uncertain times, a crowded elevator smells different to a midget. Or, the sun rose over the horizon like a great big radioactive baby's head. Or a favorite of mine. It hurt the way your tongue hurts when you accidentally staple it to a wall. Beware of too readily taxing the imagination. But here's a really good one, also funny, from Christopher Buckley's Thank You for Smoking. Nick Naylor had been called many things since becoming chief spokesman for the Academy of Tobacco Studies, but until now, no one had actually compared him to Satan. Consider how immediate that is. We're smack in the now. This has just happened, and we're given a lot of information about Nick. We know his job, that he's been at it a while, that it's an important job at his company, and we can even intuit something of his moral and ethical stance, since he's been called names before, and is now being compared to the biggest bad guy of all. Here's another opening from Dwayne Schwartz's The Blonde. I poisoned your drink. Doesn't get much more immediate than that, does it? You're right in there. You want to know, first of all, if this is serious or not, and if it is, who poisoned who? To find out, you've got to read the next paragraph at least. And that's the point of the first line. To spark the engine that drives the train from paragraph to paragraph all the way down to the caboose. My own most oft-quoted line is a one-line opening paragraph of The Girl Next Door. You think you know about pain? I think it works for a similar reason. It directly challenges you to read on. An immediate confrontation. Tells you a bit about the narrator, too. We know he's experienced pain, or else he wouldn't be asking the question. We can also intuit that he thinks it's big pain. Why, we wonder, which drives us to the next paragraph. Here's another less confrontational from Stuart Onan's The Night Country. Come, do you hear it? Hear what? To find out, you gotta read on. This guy is beckoning. Your first line needn't pack a wall. It can be quiet, seductive, lure instead, like Onan's. It can intrigue rather than tackle. Here's Ian McEwan's Black Dogs. Ever since I lost mine in a road accident, hold on. Since I lost my way through these pages. Ever since I lost mine in a road accident when I was 8, I have had my eye on other people's parents. How so, you wonder? Where's this going? The first line can be lyrical, beautiful, just so long as it drives us forward. Let's see. Also take a look at how they set up and interact with first paragraphs. The opening paragraph should always fulfill the promise of the opening line. This is not the time to go off on some tangent. This is where you start playing your song. Example from a talented, relatively young Canadian writer, Rio Ewers, from his novella Old Man Scratch. He was a mean son of a bitch. That's what I tell myself, what I have to tell myself. Even Melinda, who hadn't a bad word to say about anybody most of the time, had called him a miserable shitbag one supper time and got me laughing so hard I couldn't eat. Even so, during the nights when the darkness has no end, when the wind blows through the gaps in the bedroom window frame with a sound like a child crying, telling myself that Scratch Clayton was a mean son of a bitch just isn't enough. I'm not nuts about all of this. The wind like sounding like a child crying. I can't hear it, but maybe that's just me. I'd have gone simpler. Still, there's a nice sense of economy here that propels you to read further, all connected to that first sentence, which is elegantly connected to the last. You learn that the narrator thinks of Scratch politely, sure, but you also learn right away that he's got regrets of some kind regarding him, that Scratch is no longer with us, and that Melinda, who's probably his wife, I'm thinking of the supper time reference here, is gone now too. Because in a present tense narrative, he refers to them both in the past tense. All in 4 lines, not bad. For me, economy is crucial to good writing, particularly with the onset of your story, particularly in writing suspense. To hell with exposition. You can sneak that in gradually as the story goes along. Right now, at the onset, you want to keep returning those pages. You want to leap right in. As Elmore Leonard famously said when asked how he got his writing so tight, I leave out parts that people tend to skip. Unless height, weight, hair color, or the size of his dick is crucial to your character, leave it the hell out. Unless the landscape is itself a major character, which it is in some books by James Lee Burke, Paul McCarthy, and others, leave it for later. I think it was the screenwriter William Goldman, and novelist William Goldman, who advised writers to start a scene as close to the end of the thing as possible. And the Vonnegut had something to say about that too. Good idea. Skip the build-up. Get to the guts of it. Here's the opening of a new story of mine called Bully. So it's all pouring out of him now. He's all over the place. We're done with the weather and the small talk. It's like I've said something loose inside him, which he says he's not spoken of in 20-odd years. Maybe it's his own 3 scotches to my 1, but I think it runs much deeper than that. I think he's speaking about who he is and why. This is a reporter doing an interview. We don't need to know who he is just yet, or even who the interview subject is. We don't need to know where they're sitting, how he got there, what he wants to learn from this man. That comes later. We enter in the middle of something, and it seems important. Economy. Okay, we're writing suspense, we're writing horror, we're writing the literature of anxiety. Our character and story are solid. We've got the first line and the first paragraph. It's down. We've got the engine running. How do we keep it stoked? Poetry. That's right, poetry. Listen. Her wounds are graced with fortune, so close together this time at her left side, the knife and bullet, the crescent moon and the full moon, mere inches apart. She has staunched them with mud and wrapped them tightly with her belt. There will be a little blood trail for them to follow. Still, she must heal. There is pain. Pain that pulses through her body from shoulder to knee, that beats at her body as the wave beat the shore. But pain is to be borne. Pain is nothing this is nothing to the pain of birthing. Pain says only one thing, only, alive. And then to this. Clink is in a panic, but his hand fishes across the shelf and finds the stockless short-barreled 12-gauge he keeps out there for varmints, a paper towel shoved in the end of the barrel against the dust, and he brings it round. There's a moment of triumph as he swings it on her, and fucking bitch, he shouts as the woman slaps the barrel up with the motor blade so that it's parallel to his head. But he's already pulled the trigger. The tower shreds like snowfall all around him, and he feels as though somebody shoved an ice pick in his ear. I swear I'm not trying to sell my books here, but both of these are from my novel, Neglecting the Key, The Woman, which I just gave you to think for. There's no writing I know better than my own, so it was just simpler to find examples from my stuff. See the difference between them? The first is mostly fragments, short lines, some of them minus the verb, a kind of literary stuttering. Like listening to real stuttering, it can produce a sense of unease and tension in the listener and reader, even though nothing major is going on. In the second, a whole lot is going on, and the lines are all run-ons. They want to race you through the thing, leave you gasping for breath. These 2 types of sentences, and combinations of them, are the meter, the stressed, unstressed, stressed of suspense writing, the poetry. Look at your favorite horror suspense books, see how they work. You'll spot them easily enough. Often you find staccato lines toward the beginning, where the story just wants to make you nervous. The run-ons once the action hits, often, but not always. I've seen and done this in reverse, as in Bully. Here are the last lines. She is a voice from the grave. He raises his glass, seems to consider drinking, doesn't. He puts it down instead. In the background, sirens again. I heard what she had to say. Then I went home to the house where he was, sitting in his chair, surprised as hell to see me. And afterwards, when I went back to the well, I didn't go alone. Again, staccato, stuttering. Okay, the rest is about research. I don't think you need to know about that. You guys know about research. So, then I'm going to read just a very short piece called Don't Waste My Time. This is theory. A very good reader of mine, who I think might be you, Gary, I'm not sure, once told me, I think most of what you write is really about loss. Was that you?
I don't think so.
Okay, well,
I wish it was.
I never really seen it. But when I gave it some thought, it became clear to me that he was right. Loss runs through my stuff like a slow-moving stream. You have to listen carefully, but if you do, it's there. You can hear it gurgling away, almost always. It's not surprising, though, that he saw it and I didn't. Most of our motivation for writing what we do is so linked up to the subconscious that we're not even aware of it. We don't know exactly why we seem to know this or that particular story is right for us. We just do. It just feels right at that particular time, right specifically for us, and we proceed from there. Then there's the conscious stuff. Sometimes I'm cognizant of this lost thing. A cat dies, a well-loved uncle, an important relationship goes horribly south on me. In those instances, I'm writing to get something off my chest. It's immediate. I need to write that piece, right now. It feeds into the healing process or it rips away at the wound. Either way, it's got a life of its own. It demands to be written. It knows I'm a writer, and writing's what I do. So it's telling me, sit down and write me, asshole. Other stories are less immediate, more reflective. You might ponder them for a long while before putting your pieces together that'll make them work for you. Cover took me a year just to get things rolling. But don't make the mistake of thinking that they're not coming from the same slow-moving stream inside, the same emotional core. Our pains, our concerns, our fears, our loves and losses never go away completely. They're what make you the individual writer you are, unique, like no other. It's impossible for two writers to write the same story. That doesn't mean your canvas needs to be small and personal and self-obsessed, nor do you have to bleed all over the page. Quite the contrary, you can be ridiculous. Carl Hyacint's funny as hell and with a damn big canvas, but he sure does have his concerns and fears for the environment, for the state of Florida in particular, and human nature in general. And between you and I think his major theme is lost too. P.G. Wodehouse's Jeeves novels were hilarious, but he was also sticking to the British class structure. Henry Miller could make you laugh out loud with a by the way aside on bread, while at the same time excoriating American culture. First mission of fiction is to engage, to entertain in the broadest sense, to grab the readers with your character, whip them with your story. A lot of horror and suspense fiction are essentially cautionary tales. Don't go into the woods at night. Don't get involved with that blonde over there. I don't care how good she looks, she's trouble. As such, they serve to remind us that the world can be a dangerous place indeed. Quite valuable to contemplate that now and then. But it can be much, much more as well. As I noted earlier, fiction can also be a very neat instrument of personal revenge and many other things. Some of them pretty big things. And you can get to them all through the vehicle of a rousing, driving narrative. You have a bully pulpit here. I suggest you use it. Hyacin, Between the Laughs, confronts the rape of Florida. Peter Straub in Ghost Story confronts sexism and guilt. Stephen King in Lisey's story tells you what real devotion's all about. Cormac McCarthy's No Country for Old Men meditates on love and duty. Bret Easton Ellis takes on American smug, self-indulgent yuppie Hope Mond in American Psycho. And, well, psychos. Your concerns could be as huge as you want them to be, from the human condition as you see it to global warming, from what it's really like to be a scared, lonely kid to the likeliness of jihad, so long as you tell a good, suspenseful story. Fiction's very versatile, particularly suspense fiction, because if you're any good at it, you're racing the reader along through your story so well and so fast that it's only when he pauses to take a breather that he realizes you're actually talking to him about something. In Offspring, I snuck in my feelings toward scofflaw dads. In The Girl Next Door and Only Child, I dealt with child abuse for the most part, but also in the former with herd mentality, and in the latter with a legal system that often looks the other way. In Red, I went after the system again as regards animal cruelty. In Cover, the personal cost of war. You get what I'm saying. On top of all that loss, I made some conscious choices to stick it to somebody or other. Felt good. We're talking about gravitas here, about having something important you want to get out, in good old genre fiction, about having something on your mind other than entertainment.